And we are live. All right, I'll go ahead and call to order the regular meeting of the City Council for July 17th, 2023. Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance this evening will be led by Councilmember Gardner.
Heavenly Father, thank you so much, Lord, for this day, and we thank you for the privilege that we have to come and serve the people of Maumelle, Lord, as the elected officials, God. And we just pray for wisdom in all that we do tonight and all the things that we discuss. Lord, we're very thankful to live in this community and all the great things that it has going for it, God. And we just pray that each day that the decisions that we make will be those that will benefit this community. Help the people here, Father, to enjoy their life, Lord, that they can just live in this great place. And we're so thankful for the beauty of the area that you've blessed us with. God, thank you for all those that serve this city every day, working here at City Hall and in all the various departments and our first responders, Lord. We are very grateful for the great community and the great workforce that we have here that takes care of this city, God. Thank you so much for all that you do for us and the blessings that you give us every day. And we just pray that we'll look for someone to serve each day of our life, God. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Next order of business is the approval of the minutes. Y'all have received a copy of the July 3rd regular meeting minutes. If there's no discussion on that, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the minutes.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Next order of business is the financial statement review. Ms. Sousa.
Well, hopefully you can see me now. So thank you, Mr. Yes, and thank you to the Public Works team that did this stuff for me. Okay, so in your packet, you will find the city finance report as of June 30th, 2023. And I'm going to present the financial statements for the main funds here. Here we have the revenue. Overall, all the revenue for the year is a little behind budget, but this is due to timing differences only. And for 2023, as you can see, the revenues are much higher than previous year. We have better revenue for the different departments, and glad to communicate that we have collected the rentals on time, including the house. And we started collecting new interest rates in June 2023. As you can see here, that's why these revenues look much better than previous year. Talking about expenses, if you see, we look that we are behind the budget, but this is not the reality. What happened is that we have not had a full team in police, in fire, and in the parks department. So salaries and benefits are lower. Also, here in the capital expenditures, we are $1 million less than budget. We also are missing some expenditures for this year, like the reporting software, the system upgrade in the police department, the station alerting upgrade for the fire department. We are missing a truck for animal services, equipment for public works, and the improvements in the park. All of this will come later on. So then the fund balance. And I would like to explain a little bit the fund balance for you, because the fund balance, somebody asked before, how much is our bank balance, right? So the fund balance usually is our bank balance, because we are in a city that we do like cash accounting, except at the end of the year when we accrue the revenue for the months that we collect in the first months of the next year. So usually, if you ask me, what is your bank balance? It will be the fund balance. In this case, for the general fund, we have 13 million. So as always, we are okay because per requirement, we have to have 20% of the budgeted operating expenses. So in our case, we have 17 millions of operating expenses as a budget. The 20% is 3 million, so we are above the requirements for the 9 millions. The next fund is the street fund. And in the street fund, here is similar, a little similar to the general fund, because if you see, the street actual expenses look much lower than the budget. And the main reason is the maintenance supplies and capital improvement for the street are coming later this year. The total street balance, dash bank balance, is $4.9 million. And then our other main fund is the sanitation fund. In here, you know, the expenses are lower than budget because they have had very good control of expenses. Even if we have a loss in this business, I call it. So the current available sanitation fund balance is 1 million. Is what we have in the bank for this one. So now I would like to highlight some finance issues. First of all, the payroll. As you know, we have been working with the UKG team to implement our new payroll program. And speaking of teams, our HR director, Doreen, she's not here, she's working, but has been leading the very challenging UKG transition with the different departments for time and attendance. Because each department has their own benefits and rules. So it is not a very standard implementation in the city. So the test that we did last Friday failed, and we have to move the implementation for August or later until the moment there is no discrepancies for security of the payment of the employees. The other highlight that I have for you in finance department is the reporting in OpenGov that I couldn't open last time. So now I have it here. So by looking into a more efficient way of working in the finance area, we would like to present to you a new financial reporting proposal. It's the one I passed to you. You have it there. And the proposal is to use standard OpenGov financial reports. So this is the report, and I'm going to put it here for you. Cindy, would you mind helping me here? It's not in the screen. No, it's, look. This time I have to be able to open it. No, I don't know. But that's why I printed for you. I just, you know, because I don't know what happened with my computer in this room. Okay. This financial report that you have was issued directly from our accounting system, OpenGov. So in the OpenGov system, we have a complete integration of all OpenGov financial modules into the general ledger. So everything is in the system. The cash receipts, the accounts payable, purchase orders, accounts receivable, bank reconciliations, 2023 budget is there, and also the actuals for 2022. We updated them to have all the data there. So all the financial data is being captured from my team and from the source document without any further manual entry. And also, we have document scanning, uploading, and archiving, linking to individual transactions. So it is a very good system, and I feel a lot of confidence in this system now that we have been reviewing. So I wanted to give you this report in advance, and I don't know why it doesn't want to show it. But if you see revenues, first you have the fund 101, and it's the same idea as the previous presentations, has revenue, then expenditures, and then net. You are going to see something different because it comes from an accounting system. The revenues in the accounting world are negative. So that's why you see there's some negative number. And I would like to explain it because this is why we have negative revenue. We don't have negative revenue. It comes from the accounting system, so it presents the revenue in negative. And then you have the expenses. They look normal, but and then the net result. Also, another thing that you will see here is the integration of the different groups of revenue is different because this comes from a system that is used for another cities. Actually, this government system is used by other cities that they design the model. So since I wanted to present to you, I say I want to use the standard report. I don't want to work much. Just give me the standard report that you have. Let me present to the city council. And if you like it, really we can start using this. And the other advantage that I was telling you also is that at some point when you authorize everything, I can give you access and you will have the history, and we can even publish the monthly financial statements as you see them there in your printing. No, I don't know. It doesn't want to show it. Doesn't want to show it here. But, well, that's all. I don't know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on the financial report? Councilmember Mosley?
Yes, sir. Is there anything that we ought to be concerned about at all as far as financials? The numbers all look like they're kind of in line, and we're doing better than expected last year and budget, from what I can tell.
Yes.
So
I
anything
think
we
we
ought to
are aligned. I consider there is no any alarm situation at this point. So yes, we are okay.
Okay. I had a question last week. I asked the mayor, you weren't here, and I was asking how much cash we actually have on deposit in various banks that are in CDs or just plain old cash and that sort of thing. Do you have any idea what the
Yes.
total is?
Yes, we manage around 22 million because we have trust funds, we have certificates of deposits, and regular money. And it is for the different funds. Some money is restricted, some money is available like the general fund.
Okay. All right, thank you. My remaining questions involve the 2021 financial report and audit. Do we have any idea what the status is on that? Do you?
Major, would
I
you
spoke
like
with Liz today, who uploaded the last remaining requested pieces of information, and the ACFR draft has already been submitted to the auditors. So we anticipate they will review everything we got. If it's like most years, they'll ask for something else, or they'll ask for a clarification document, but we've given them, as of today, everything in preparation for the audit.
Okay. Yeah, I actually called the auditors on Friday and just asked them what they had and what they were still looking for. And they, at the time, at 1:30 on Friday afternoon, they had gotten 12 pages of a 150-page report for the ACFR. And they said that's all that had been delivered, but they had gotten it that morning. And that apparently Ms. Mathis said she might be forthcoming with quite a bit more on Monday, which it sounds like she has been. Is that so? So has she supplied the entire ACFR report at this point, as far as you know?
Yes.
Okay. Now, there was also an open items list that was that you supplied me. I'd asked for it at the last meeting, and they said that they were still looking for. They hadn't gotten any of those things yet, and they couldn't, get around to doing a report till they had finalized all that. Do we know where that stands?
Yes, we've given them everything, at least according to Liz, as of today.
As of tonight,
Yes.
She's gotten everything. Okay. One thing, I thought I'd share this with the council. We got to talking about the ACFR report and how much of an ordeal it's been for us here over the last few years. And I mentioned that I thought we had allocated some money for them to assist if we needed some assistance in getting 2022 and that sort of thing. And they weren't aware we had done that, but they said, oh, that's fine, yeah, we can assist. And they said, we can actually do the report for you. I don't know if you all knew that was possible or not, but they can apparently take our year-end stuff and they can put it in the report themselves. And now they charge, he didn't quote me anything, but I got the feeling it was between $5,000 and $10,000 they would do that. So that's something we could keep in mind if.
Of course, I will keep it in mind because I am really concentrated in 2023 to have super clean accounting and everything, and that will help me for 2022. So yes, I will keep it in mind.
Oh, you'd be interested in that?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So anyway, yeah, they said they could do that, and they said, just let us know, we'll be happy to quote you something, so.
Well, and they gave us a soft quote, which is why we came to the city council with the budget resolution for the 2022 ACFR at the start of Ms. Sousa's employment. So we've talked with them about that, and we're aware of it, brought it to the council's attention, and y'all appropriated money for that.
Okay. I asked him, I said, what's it do when we when we get late on providing them with information and that sort of thing? He said, well, it messes our schedule up some. I said, is there a clause in the contract where you guys can charge more money if we're messing you up? And he said, yeah, there is, but he said, I haven't done so. So anyway, I think he's hoping that we'll get straightened out in the future and they can plan on doing their field work at certain times, and we'll be ready and we'll get back to them and that sort of thing. And so anyway, we talked about that. And I said, is there any kind of accounting software that can generate the ACFR report from the year, the final stuff at the end of a year? And they said, yeah, there's actually accounting systems out there that can do that.
Yeah, that's ACFR Online, and Liz has talked to the city council about that feature and has talked about how it's smoothed the transition. And one of the things that she's been doing with, it used to be CAFR Online, and it's ACFR on, it's some variation since they changed it from CAFR to ACFR. And so Liz has presented to the city council on that, and one of the things she's doing is not just, it used to be used, we found that out back, I think, under Ms. Thompson, and then we went several years not knowing that it was being used, and then Liz went to subscribe to it to help with the ACFR and realized that the city had previously used that. So that might have explained why we went probably from 16 till 21, I want to say, 21 before we really started making a lot more progress. And one of the things Liz, as she's reported to the city council before, has mentioned is that she's been working on not just doing the ACFR, but building that system. She's talked about putting the notes in there so that when you go to that line item and it asks for a piece of information, she has built the notes in that software so that it tells internally where in our software you need to look to pull the numbers to use to generate that sort of sum total that they're asking for in that.
Just one little thing. It's not an accounting software. It is it's a software to produce the report. The accounting software that we have is OpenGov and it's new, so we don't want to change it again. I'm just fixing it. So.
Okay. All right. I was prepared to blow a gasket tonight if we hadn't gotten all that stuff by now. But it sounds like she came through, because I went back and looked at the tape of the meeting a month ago, and she said, I'm finalizing the ACFR report. I'm going to deliver it at the end of the week to the auditors, and they'll have everything they need at the end of the week, and that would have been the last week of June. And I just don't understand that sort of thing, but at least supposedly at this point, auditors have everything, so I'm not
That's
gonna.
my understanding. I've been in communication with Liz. She took off some days or a day last week to finalize it. I went ahead and read the transcript of what she said, and she did say at the last meeting where she gave the report that she believed she'd have it done within a week, and that if it was all submitted to the auditors, that they thought that based on the timing at that time, it would take about a month. But she also went on to explain that often one of the difficulties was that she would get into something and then realize it was a bigger deal and it would require more investigation.
Okay, but anyway, so, yeah, we're not gonna be hearing back from the auditors at the end of July. It's, at the best case, probably the end of August, maybe longer, because they've got final things to dig through, and I got the feeling there was a little more field work they were gonna have to do, so. Anyway, let me ask you a question. At some point, what we've done in the past is we've got a committee it's called the Financial Oversight Committee. We set it up way back when we had some real problems back under the previous mayor. And the last time we met was probably a couple of years ago. We were getting uneasy about, felt like we were falling behind on our annual audits and that sort of thing. And so we met with Ms. Mathis and for about an hour, and we all asked questions and learned a lot and that sort of thing. Would you be open to having a little meeting like that? We just did it.
Definitely, if you
do it
have
in the
any
blue room
questions,
and
and we can review any subject you want in that meeting at more detail, yes.
Okay, would you be on board with that, Mr. Mayor?
I'm not opposed to the city council asking questions. The Financial Oversight Committee meeting, that committee was created by the city council for a very specific purpose. As stated in the language of that motion, I believe we've talked about this a little while back. And that purpose was to, and I don't remember the specific language, but it wasn't an audit committee that was stood up or a general standing committee to review the finances. That committee was formed after a former finance director had resigned and submitted a letter with numerous grievances as to what was going on in the finance department at that time. And that committee was formed to investigate and follow up on those. As I remember, and I obviously haven't looked
pretty
at the
much it,
language.
yeah.
And so that committee, so far as I know, no longer exists, in that those issues that were raised have been addressed. And I believe you were the chair of that committee, and I think we talked about that at the final committee meeting, and I might be wrong about that. We talked about it in a public meeting, sort of the scope of that, and that it was, I had thought, concluded, unless there's still investigations going on into those original letters and complaints filed by not the former finance director, but the one before that, then there's that. So I don't have a problem asking questions. I just know that oftentimes digging and just adds extra work onto the finance director who's trying to really streamline things. So if, I would just ask the council to take that into consideration when doing that stuff.
And I'm trying to put for you, I call it finance highlights. So if you would like to have something special, I can have the finance highlight in the next meeting, in order that also everybody is informed.
I also, just for the record, I said the finance director before the last finance director. It was not. It was the finance director before the finance director before. So it went back one. I'm just saying that so that no one's reputation is thrown around.
Yeah, it's been a long time, and our memories may not serve us well. I don't know. I was under the understanding we didn't disband it. I just kind of gave her. I remember giving a summary report of
I
what.
thought there was no, so far as I remember, Councilmember Mosley, there was no motion to disband it. Rather, the charter under which it was called seemed to have been concluded. One of the things that we're starting to see, and a little bit of this is a benefit of Beatrice coming in, not having to work on the ACFR, because Liz is still handling the 22, is we're starting, like this finance report that you're seeing here is majestic for reasons that may not be apparent. That is, this is the computer-generated report.
Yeah.
This does not require a finance director or accountant to pull information from other areas, compile, add, subtract. It's the computer-generated report, which means not only can you pull it quickly, but it means that there's no human fingers messing around with these numbers. These are the numbers from the accounting software, which seems like that would be a standard report, but is not the way the financial software works. Beatrice has been talking about, and we've talked about this with Liz, and Shannon has been one of my goals, is to get an online checkbook. And Beatrice is talking about the ability to basically send out a link of these things to where you can effectively click on that and you can start going into transaction level data available to the public and to the city council. And so that's really where we're aiming at. And I think that if we can get that level of transparency that we've been working on for years, it took a while to realize our current software was not even capable of beginning to approach that. I think that a lot of the concerns that some folks have about the city's finances, though we're in good financial shape, the reporting has been less than stellar. I think if we can continue to focus on that sort of stuff, those concerns get mellow when someone can hang out in their underwear in their bedroom at night and dig into what the city is purchasing and look at how the money is being spent, look at the revenues that are coming in from their home computer is really where we're aiming at. And I think that tackles a lot of the concerns underlying things like you're talking about, Councilmember Mosley. And I would prefer if we continue to direct the finance department's energies toward that as opposed to just kind of doing other things.
Mr. Mayor, you said a second ago, you may have said the wrong year, but you said something about Liz was working on the 2022 capital?
No, pardon me, 2021 capital.
Okay.
She is not touching the 22. I misspoke.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Make sure the minutes reflect the 21 actually.
2022 is our challenge.
Yeah, that gasket was about to blow again.
No. She doesn't want to do it. Beatrice doesn't want to do it. No one.
No, please, I want to do it. I prefer to do it with my team.
Okay.
They are here, they are super supportive with me, and we work very well as a team. So we can figure out how to do it, right?
I take it at this point, Ms. Mathis is almost out of the picture at this point. Is she still handling the remaining, what they call open items list? Is she still?
So my understanding is that has all been submitted. Earlier today, I was
Okay.
talking with Ms. Sousa, and we're waiting to hear back on Liz, whether she was going to get it all submitted before the council meeting. At 5 o'clock, I heard from her. She said it's all uploaded now. Prior to that, the directive, Ms. Sousa will be calling down to the auditors tomorrow to confirm what all they're going to need. We're hoping that they have everything, and then almost inevitably they're going to come back and ask for something more. They're going to think that they're going to find something and have follow-up questions, which is pretty standard. But as of this moment, my understanding is that everything has been uploaded, and we will be verifying that information with the auditors tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you. I'm not going to, would somebody at some point like to sit down with Ms. Sousa and just have a little roundtable talk? I'm not going to propose it or set a date tonight because I'm going to be real busy for the next 3 weeks. But is that something people would be interested in doing? In just a workshop setting?
Councilmember Gardner?
Personally, I've found the finance department's work over the last months to be stellar with what they're doing. I kind of agree with what the mayor has been saying. I would rather them focus their energies on getting all of the software linked and working together before we start bogging them down, asking questions. They've always been available to me whenever I've emailed or done anything, so I'm not concerned with taking their time for a sit-down meeting personally. Because I know they would always answer those questions for me anyway. So I would rather them keep on keeping on.
Thank you.
Councilmember Holt?
I agree with that scenario. I believe that we have dug ourselves into oblivion on checking and checking and checking, and I believe that there is a process underway. We will eventually get to the bottom of it, and at that point, perhaps we could have a periodic time during the year for an overall review, so that we can explain it to others if we understand it ourselves. So I would agree to wait until we are totally finished, and then let's have the oversight, because I don't think we're going to solve anything in the meantime. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And just a reminder, we do more than every couple months. We do once a month finance overviews to the city council in the financial report, where all these questions are there. I would also remind the city council, we know the audit is late, but it's the least late audit that has occurred in 6 or 7 years. We're making the progress that we said we were going to be making. We continue to make improvements. I understand the frustration, I assure you, better than most people, because I have very lofty goals that I thought I would achieve, or we would achieve in 2019, when it became apparent that even our budgeting software, Excel, had broken hyperlinks that weren't adding things properly. And it's been an ongoing progress. I think the finance department, under the leadership of Ms. Sousa, and prior to her, Ms. Mathis, has done an outstanding job. We're catching up. We're making the progress. We're doing that while implementing on new software, increasing reporting techniques, and handling some of the mess that has been here before. And so I think it's just important to keep that in mind. That does not absolve the fact that the audit is late, that we are still late, that is frustrating to, I think, each and every person who is dying to see the ACFR, and it's a little bit of a tarnishment on the city's reputation that we are working to solve, and we're making the progress that we've been saying that we were trying to make for a while. Councilmember Groenewald.
Well, I just wanted to say, you kind of took the wind out of my sail, because you said everything I was going to say. But I'd like to reiterate what the mayor said, and he used an even better word than I was going to use, majestic. I have seen a lot of financial reports, and I know you and your team have been working really, really hard on this, and we've all been anxiously awaiting this. But it is majestic, and I love it. It's clear, and like the mayor also said, it removes that human error. But more than anything, it streamlines it, and it makes it just so much more efficient for you and your team. And then just the transparency for the city council and for the public. To me, that is just huge. So congratulations to you and your team. This is big. And for people who are not in the financial department, but it's important for all of us to know, it's very easy to read, and it's clear, and I love it. So kudos.
Glad to hear. Thank you.
Councilmember Mosley.
Yeah, I like this. This is okay too.
And I was able to put it in the screen. This
Okay.
is what you or...
Hold on, let me show the public. Wait.
It's actually there.
So if when it's authorized, this is what the citizens will be able to see every month. So it is the 3 main funds now, but as I was telling the mayor, we can put all the funds you want, but we usually work on the 3 main ones. But this is the presentation, and it's very nice because I just update the month. So, and the data is pulled from the work that my team does behind the scenes.
I want to reiterate one other thing that this forces is it is very easy to have something cross the desk. No, you're doing a financial report. You're like, okay, I know I'm going to input this later, or I'm going to check this later, or we're going to reconcile this later. I know that's going to happen, but on the financial report, it'd probably be most accurate if I gave the council the up-to-the-minute numbers, and this is what it's going to be, but I'll enter this later. You can't do that sort of stuff now. Everything has to be, the work has to be done, and the report tells us the work that has been done and the money that is there. That's subtle, but has proven to be, especially years ago, one of the problems that we've been trying to unwind is things kind of coming in at different times and the like. Anyways, I'm sorry, Councilmember Mosley, were you done?
Yeah, I have one more thing. Yeah, I would like, it doesn't sound like we're going to have a workshop thing, but or at least not now, but I assume, Mr. Mayor, would it be okay if I just dropped by and visited with Miss Sousa sometime? I've never actually sat down and just said hi to her. And
Please,
so is that
Yeah,
appropriate?
yes, sir, that's fine.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. That's all I've got.
If there is nothing further, I'd entertain a motion to accept the financial report. I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? All opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Sousa.
thank you, everybody.
I lost video on the stream, but I think I got it back. All right, that brings us to the next item of business, number 9, procedural motion. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to have all ordinances and resolutions read by title only.
So moved. Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Next order of business is unfinished business. The first item of unfinished business is the third reading of ordinance 1090. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1090, an ordinance accepting and confirming the dedication of certain streets and drainage in the development known as Maumelle Town Center, including Town Center Drive.
Thank you. Thank you.
Approve ordinance 1090.
I have a motion and a second. Open the floor for discussion. Councilmember Mosley.
Yeah, I'm usually opposed to this sort of thing, taking in a private street or a private road or something private. That's, but in this is a different case in that it, with the intent to have deeded that to the city and for the city to have accepted it, there seems to be enough documentation that I don't think we'll have anybody else walk through the door where it's this clean. And I use the word clean, but I feel like this might be something I can vote for tonight. Mr. Drummer looks like he might have something to say. Nope.
No, we were
Nope.
just moving the step stool.
All right. I thought he was racing up here to say something. But so I will probably vote for this unless somebody sees any reason we shouldn't. Anybody have any concerns about this? My only other concern was, Mr. Mayor, do you view this road as something that might turn into a burden over time, or is it just going to be
No more than all roads.
no more
Councilmember Mosley.
than Audubon and whatever else that goes? That's
Yeah, there's nothing that we saw about this road that was unusual for a road and drainage in a similar age that has been poorly, if not at all, maintained. But I think all roads are burden,
yeah.
except for when I'm driving on it. The maintenance and upkeep of the roads and drainage is a constant struggle.
All right. All right, thank you. That's all I've got.
Thank you, sir. Any additional discussion on this? All right, if there's nothing further, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Holt,
Yes.
Councilmember Shin,
Yes.
Councilmember Tierney,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams, Councilmember Gartner,
Yes.
Councilmember Mazzoni,
Yes.
Councilmember Grunwald, Councilmember Mosley.
Yes.
Motion passes, and ordinance 1090 is adopted. The next order of business is the second reading of ordinance 1091 concerning the requirements for banking services. But before we get there, at the last meeting, Council Member Mosley had brought up a question about whether or not we thought we might want to amend this a little bit further to allow the city to have more than just one single banking option. I was talking with Ms. Sousa and others, and we do agree that we want to take a look at this a little bit more, and if we're going to amend ordinance 1091, we'd like to just include, or if we're going to amend these sections of code, we'd like to include a little bit more. At this time, I'm asking that this be tabled to the second meeting in August, which will give us time to not rush through it, but to look at it and make any proposed changes at that time.
So moved.
Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I was actually gonna, ask you tonight if you felt like we even needed to do that. I was thinking about tabling it indefinitely and then just, asking the, city attorney to come up with an ordinance to just strike this code entirely as being unnecessary. And, you know, go ahead and look at it some more if you'd like to. I'm not gonna make that motion unless you agree with me on this.
Maybe we could come back in August and look at it a little bit more, because I was talking with Ms. Sousa, and we do think that there can be some improvements, but maybe we could look at that as well. But if we're gonna make changes to it, I do know that we wanna at least make some more changes, in addition to those suggested in this ordinance.
My concern is that somebody down the road will look at this and go, oh my gosh, we've got to do all of our banking services with one bank.
I think we
And
can.
that's not what we want to do.
I do like something in ordinance that requires the occasional rebidding of the banking services, right? And that's a good policy, and not all policies have to be ordinances. I think that's a good policy to have, because I think it would have, if we would have been doing that, if we would have been even able to do that, because the current ordinances require that we can only accept bids from banks that have 3 physical locations in Maumelle, which means 0 banks. But it doesn't seem like a bad policy that is strong enough that it might want to be worded in an ordinance one way or the other. So,
Okay.
But we can look at that and maybe make recommendations, and then the council can look at it at that point in time.
Okay, yeah, I'll support your, motion.
Councilmember Tierney?
Yeah, I just want to reinforce what you're saying about having multiple banks, and it's only good business to have multiple banking options.
I agree. And that was a good catch by Councilmember Mosley. So I've got a motion and a second on the floor to table ordinance 1091 to the second meeting in August. Is there any additional discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. That brings us to ordinance, new business, the first reading of ordinance 1092, authorizing the mayor to enter into an interlocal agreement. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, a resolution to be entitled Resolution Number 2023-24, a resolution to Sorry about that. Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1092, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an interlocal agreement for the purpose of creating the Little Rock Air Force Base Regional Planning Committee and establishing its authority and responsibility.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Okay, I may do a decent job butchering this a little bit, but I will rely on some help. Why is everyone looking at my computer screen? Yeah. I may do a little bit of a job butchering this, but we do have the County Attorney, Adam Fogelman, who is here, who can probably describe this a lot better than I can. Please, sir, come on down. Say your name.
Good evening. My name's Adam Fogelman. I'm the Pulaski County Attorney. Mayor, thank you. Council, thank you for having me. I'm going to try to make this as short and brief as possible, but you give a lawyer a microphone and it might take a little while. That's fair, right?
It is fair.
So for the last several years, I'll call them the participating jurisdictions, the counties and cities that have land area within 5 miles of the Little Rock Air Force Base and military installations in Central Arkansas have been participating in a conditional use study that was sponsored by the Department of Defense through the Arkansas Military Department. I'm going to shorten that up and say, for the last 3 years, they've been looking at development around the Little Rock Air Force Base with the focus to make sure that the land uses today are consistent with the mission of the base. The goal of the interlocal that's in front of you is to make sure that we have a system in place so that for the next 50 years, we can make sure that the development patterns around the base are consistent with the mission. That's about as short and sweet as I can get it. A little broader explanation, a little more explanation is that each participating jurisdiction, each city and county gets one appointee. You would select that appointment and confirm it in the same way that you do any of your members of your own planning board or planning commission. In the unincorporated area of Pulaski County only, the board or committee would act as an administrative board, so they would actually put into administration any military zoning ordinance that's adopted by you and Pulaski County and the other cities in Pulaski. And inside your corporate boundaries and inside the surrounding counties, the committee acts in an advisory capacity just to make sure that implementation is consistent and to be kind of a centralized record-keeping hub. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Oh, that was much better than I would have fumbled through.
Thank you.
Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, have we actually, it talks about we've had ongoing meetings already to come up with some kind of a report or something. I'm not aware of that. Did we have a representative or something?
We have attended, I've attended some, I think Scott has attended some, Sarah Smith has attended some. We've been going to the meetings. So if you look at the map, let me throw this up here. If you look at the map, Maumell's in the lower left-hand corner. We've got it on the screens, and I'm trying to share it in video here. Maumelle has if you look in that red box is I forget the terminology for that, but that is the area that Camp Robinson is particularly concerned about. It just barely scrapes into the city limits, barely, and it only scrapes a small part of the northern extraterritorial jurisdiction of Maumelle.
That's right. So
whereas, yeah.
I'll offer just a little bit. So at the top left of your screen, that's the runway extension, and it's really the departure and landing area for the runway at Camp Robinson. I don't remember the precise term. I think it's like a critical zone, and they've got critical zone 1 and critical zone 2, and they want height and density restrictions in there to make sure that, you know.
They don't want skyscrapers right in front of their.
You don't want a cell phone tower.
Yeah,
or
cell phone towers.
skyscraper right off the runway. You don't want things that would interfere with navigation aids or systems. You don't want to put people in danger.
So these meetings have tended to be long and often controversial in some ways, maybe, with respect to the municipalities that are entirely in these areas, whereas Maumelle has very little impact by it. So we've gone to meetings, usually if there seemed to be something that was of particular import, but we have been largely a bystander because we're so minorly affected relative to the other jurisdictions.
I've got one more question.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some other examples of development that would not be good? That was my first question, was whether a skyscraper, a 30-story condo there in our third entrance area would be something that they wouldn't like, probably.
Actually, that would not be a problem because
wouldn't?
it's not. The area that they're concerned with,
Yeah.
primarily are those areas that are in the red box.
Okay,
So
you're
a
talking like
30-story
north
condo at the Morgan Maumelle on I-40, if it was in a particular, on a few parcels of land, might be a problem, yes.
Good. But is it mainly just high things?
It's height, if things are, I'm trying to think of some of the examples, if it attracts wildlife in some areas, because that can interfere with military operations.
I had heard also bright, like dense lights, really bright lights in certain areas could.
Or highly reflective materials.
Highly reflective, things.
Because of the impact on visibility during takeoff and landing, if you're in flight visibility conditions, or visible flight conditions, you want to be able to see. There are some areas where they, more of a rural development pattern, like 5-acre tracts or 10-acre tracts is preferable over smaller lots, for the purpose of ensuring that you don't have a lot of people right off the end of the runway. So, God forbid, if something tragic were to happen, you wouldn't have a high population right in harm's way.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Some of which explain the reasons that some of the jurisdictions closer to the base were more concerned with this. This was also a voluntary effort by the base and the municipalities and jurisdictions, in that one of the things bases want to do is make sure that they're not developed out of being functional, right? And so the communities recognize the value that the Little Rock Air Force Base brings to the communities, and wanted to be good neighbors. There was nothing imposed upon us, and there were, I can assure you, this was not the first draft or the first thing proposed. It has gone on for a while.
Many years. Yes. And it was this recommendation for the interlocal actually came out of the implementation committee itself. The consultant that was hired, he's out of state, but he's worked with bases and base communities around the country, and he could only take us so far. He couldn't describe the information he was giving us as, this is how you avoid a BRAC or a base closure or relocation. So he could only say so much, but if you read between the lines, it was pretty clear that when he left us, the place where he walked us up to, he took the horse to water, but he couldn't make us drink. So he took us to water, and the water was, well, you need some way to make sure that for the next 50 years, you're a good neighbor to the base. And I don't mean Maumelle alone. I mean Pulaski County, White County, Faulkner County, Lone Oak County. I think everybody that's looked at this so far has decided to participate. And so we're on track to have a stable, durable system in place to ensure that we don't end up with something that informs the Department of Defense that maybe they need to look elsewhere. We want them to be comfortable and confident in the base and the mission, and we'd like to expand the mission. We want this to be the best place possible for them to relocate new and future missions, and we can only do that if we have a plan.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Mr. City Attorney?
Thanks for coming out. I had a few questions.
Sure.
What's the basis of the exception for the North Little Rock ETJ?
So on the table that you find, those are actually recorded responses directly from each of the cities to the consultant on what they were willing to do and what their preference would be. And North Little Rock's preference was that they administer in their own ETJ.
Okay.
So that's the only reason.
Could you it might be helpful for the council to kind of understand the nuts and bolts. If I'm a developer and suppose inside this red cone, just suppose I happen to be right in the very sliver where it's within our city limits, how would my application proceed differently under this interlocal agreement?
So in the city limits, it wouldn't. The permit application would come directly to the Planning and Development Department like it does now. I've never developed anything in Maumelle, but I'm going to make an assumption that in the process of considering that application, that you're going to consult with your water provider, your fire department, or fire marshal, your public works department, to make sure that they are approving of what's on paper and that they have the capacity to provide services to what's proposed. So you would add the committee to that list of consulted entities, and the purpose of the committee to the planning department of Maumelle for development inside the city limits is just to advise and say, you know, we think this is perfectly fine. We don't see any conflict with the ordinance, or to say we think this is in direct conflict, but it's your decision, or here are some conditions that would make us more comfortable, but again, it's your decision.
Okay. And then suppose an applicant is in the Maumelle ETJ.
If it's in the ETJ, the application would go first to the committee, the planning, the interlocal developed committee. And the only thing that committee is looking for is consistency with the military zoning ordinance, or MZO. And so the committee would go through that process of it's either consistent with, it's inconsistent with, or it can be consistent if there are some conditions, and it comes out of that and then goes to the Maumelle Planning Department.
Okay. And is it the regional committee responsible for drafting and adopting the military zoning ordinance?
The planning consultant that has been working with the group for the last several years has drafted language, I believe, for each participating jurisdiction, but the goal there was to be as uniform as possible so that we actually have a uniform code for the military zone, and then the remainder is just your typical zoning ordinance that would apply.
Okay.
So there will be assistance there. The contract has expired, but there was work product developed, and they'll continue to consult.
Okay. And so part of some of this ETJ area, if it were annexed into the city of Maumelle later on, because I mean, we're talking about possibly decades in the future.
Sure.
If it were annexed in, it would no longer be subject to the MZO, but it would just be our regular city planning ordinances.
So any ordinance, the MZO included, would have to come from this body
Okay.
if it's to be applied in your jurisdiction.
Okay.
And so you're not giving up your authority to adopt planning or land use controls. Instead, you're working with the surrounding communities simply on administration of that code.
Okay. So assuming all the localities pass these interlocal agreements, should we expect a draft MZO to be distributed, circulated?
Yes.
Okay. Which for our situation it would apply to the ETJ.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe that there is the tiniest sliver inside the city limits.
Yes, currently this is tiny sliver. Yeah.
And that would be for y'all to administer.
Okay. Just under our regular, with the caveat that there's advice from the regional planning committee.
Or if there were any changes to your existing code, then whatever those changes are would be administered by y'all with advice.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Mosley?
Yes, so, as far as density, you were talking about housing density maybe being something you wouldn't want in a runway
Yes, sir.
path. So, for example, then if a developer came in wanting to build quite a few high-density apartment buildings out there by I-40 and touching our boundaries or even extraterritorial, that would be something that they might have a problem with. They may say, it's really not best to put those there. Is that something we could see?
I generally don't like to endeavor into hypotheticals, but I think that that's a reasonable I think what you've described is a reasonable possibility.
All right, thank you, sir.
But before anything like that happened, there'd be ordinances that would be
ordinances.
adopted
Yes,
that would spell that out, right?
that's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Any additional discussion on or questions regarding ordinance 1092? Seeing none, this will be on second reading at the next meeting. Mr. Fogelman, thank you for coming out.
Thank you all again.
because neither me nor Scott, nor I presume Mr. Thornton had any desire to speak to that level of specificity on this. The next item of business is Resolution 2023-24, amending the 2023 police, fire, and sanitation budget. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, a resolution to be entitled Resolution Number 2023-24, a resolution to amend the General and Sanitation Fund budget.
All right, we had talked a little bit about preparing for the eclipse in April of 2024. We anticipate coming during the budget time and asking for things such as overtime. There's smaller purchases that we think will need to be purchased in order to prepare for the eclipse. For those that don't know, we are expected to be in totality. I believe we're going to see an influx of people to the area and to Maumelle. Currently, the hotels are all booked. The city is making efforts to provide a blackout on the boulevard festival in cooperation with the Chamber of Commerce. We've been working with local groups to really kind of make this a good event for Maumelle. Public Safety has been working pretty thoroughly to ensure that this is as safe of an event and that we're prepared to handle what could be a very large number of people coming into the city for the eclipse and days before, in some cases a day or two after. Just to give an idea of what is possible, we could possibly see I-40 gridlocked and stopped, dead standstill for extended periods of time, days. I have no way of knowing if that's going to happen or not, but we do know that this sort of stuff has happened in other regions when they're in the eclipse. I think that the Chamber on their Facebook page has a great presentation that they had. Dr. Sherrard, I think that's his name, Sherrard came out and talked about that. I know that some of y'all were there to see that. If you get a chance, you can check that out on Facebook and really kind of see what we're talking about. With that said, the budget resolution, there are certain things that we need to order in advance if we're going to get them in time, and this is what we are looking at. We've included the total number as well as a description from each of the department of the types of things that they think they need to purchase and purchase in advance. So with that, I'll go ahead and open the floor for discussion, if there is any. Councilmember Shin.
Two questions. What, or the very first thing on the list is a 20 YD dual hookup. What is that, and how many electric bikes are we looking at buying?
We are looking at the, you're talking about the 20-yard dual hookup box. We're looking, this is for the sanitation department. They need to purchase these containers basically to haul trash at that level and to kind of place them around. We have concerns about possibly being able to move around town very smoothly. And so these are there. Also, one of the things that we were very much looking at is making sure that to the extent possible, anything that was purchased in preparation for the eclipse also had a use beyond just that weekend, and that it was stuff that the city could use in an ongoing basis. So my understanding is those are 20-yard dual hookup, like these trash hauler bins. And I'm guessing by the fact I haven't seen Mike Hogan come running in that he is not out there at the moment.
And the quantity of electric bikes?
The quantity of electric bikes, both the police and fire, I believe, requested those, and I've got both of the chiefs here ready to tell you all about it. Looks like...
Not getting them for zoning?
What's that?
Not getting them for zoning? Scott doesn't get one?
So as far as the police department is concerned, I believe it's 4 e-bikes.
That's right.
And 2 regular police bikes. We have to have the 2 regular police bikes in order to get people trained, and then they can go to the e-bike schools. But this is in preparation for the greenway that's coming to Maumelle and having more officers out on the footpaths and being able to patrol the lakes, and it's a good way for our officers to be in contact with our community. So that's why we're asking for those 4, because it's not just for this event, we'll be able to use it in the future.
So a little bit more also about roughly what we're looking at for the city festival. We're hoping to have something at Track D, perhaps camping at Track D. We're working on trying to get that under contract and negotiations. We'll have a festival at Lake Willestein. We also anticipate having several off-site smaller venues. One would be at the baseball and softball fields, where we anticipate RV camping occurring in those parking lots, with the baseball and softball associations handling some of the programming and the volunteer services that would be needed. And then at the soccer and football complex, actually tent camping. And the soccer association would be in charge of some of the programming, the vending, as well as some of the volunteer services that would be needed. So we've got these multiple different locations, and that's why there's so many. It's not just like Fourth Fest where it's all in one location. We need to not only get the first responders to those locations, but then make sure they can navigate around in a timely manner. Chief Buford, did you have anything to add on the regarding the quantity of e-bikes?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to explain the use for the fire department as well. So when you have that amount of people, and we did send, the deputy fire marshal has been involved in this from the very beginning, and he has been to various conferences. He's taken a trip this weekend actually to do some more research. And the research that he's found is in some of these cities such as Casper, Wyoming, the amount of gridlock that can occur, you have to figure out an alternative way to provide services. The e-bikes for us, we, during the day before, the day of, and the day after, we want to have the ability to have a fixed first aid facility so that if somebody has a minor type injury, they're not calling 911. Because with this amount of traffic that could be in Maumelle, we don't want to move fire trucks if we don't have to, and save that for the bigger type things. And so these e-bikes would kind of be set up for the fire department in that these fixed first aid facilities, that they could respond out and cover a large area where the largest amount of people are, like the Track D or some of the other places. And in the event that we had to evacuate somebody, some of the attachments that go with the bikes can evacuate a person to a fixed area that we've predetermined with MIMS to locate and move somebody out. Which, if we had to rely on fire trucks, you could easily get one stuck, and then if there's a fire in the city, it could be a bad thing. So, yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Any additional discussion on this resolution? Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I'm a little confused here. We've got some items listed for 69,000, another list of items for like 61,000. Is that some of that the same thing, or is this another?
It looks like one of the spreadsheets came off poorly. So we are looking at, so one of the lists is the police department's list of items. One was the fire department's list of items, and then one was the sanitation department's items.
Okay, yeah, in the total
So
there's about.
This is supposed to,
Yeah.
it's a spreadsheet, we probably should have.
Okay, sounds like in total it's about $130,000 of stuff. And what's that Ranger thing? What is
The
a
Polaris
four-seat
Ranger is a side-by-side, again, adding to the ability to maneuver through whatever terrain we need. In the past, we have reached out to North Little Rock when we've needed a side-by-side, either to go out to the river when we had to search for the missing paddleboarder, or if in the park during Fourth Fest, we sometimes have to rent those. This would allow us to purchase one and have it readily available to the police department, because we're not going to be able to reach out to other police departments during this eclipse. We're on our own, we'll be an island.
Okay. Now, is this an ATV? Is that what it is, all-terrain
sir.
vehicle? $27,000, that's a lot of money.
That's exceptionally cheap right now. Yeah. They get upwards of $40,000 quickly.
Amazing. Okay, so we've got electric bikes, there's only 4 in total we're asking for.
Yes,
is that
sir.
right? And that's like $7,000 a piece for an electric bike.
Yes, sir. They're very expensive, but they're still the best option available to us. They have the longest range, and they're the fastest ones. They'll approach 30 miles an hour.
Good. Well, all I know is tonight I'm just not comfortable voting for it, so I'll probably vote no tonight. It just seems like a lot of money for a one-time event. And,
Well, it's not a one-time event. The Eclipse is a one-time event. This
Yeah.
equipment is gonna be multifaceted. We're buying it because we're going to need it for this event in order to make sure that our public is protected. And then we're able to utilize it for indefinitely afterwards. So all of these will come in. The A-frame barricades that we use to block off roads, we would use that during Fourth Fest Parade, Christmas Parade, down at Fourth Fest in the park. Traffic cones, we always need traffic cones to direct traffic in case we have a major incident. The bike helmets and the bikes would be used. Again, the city is participating in a local greenway to connect traffic, and one of the assets is that bike lanes. And we'll need to be able to be out there and patrol and to provide safety on the footpaths.
Chief Pickard, I feel like I'm a little bit to blame here. If I were to have been on the council and see these prices, I'd be very shell shocked and say just for this weekend. So let me back up a little bit. I remember receiving a text message from you while you were at the FBI National Academy, talking about wanting to get e-bikes, and that was before we even really started talking very much about the Eclipse. Could you explain why did you send me that text message, Chief? Or what are you thinking on the
Right.
bigger scale?
On the bigger scale is I want to re-establish the bike patrol. The city of Maumelle is not conducive to a normal bike patrol, or as we have used it in the past. Because in the past, we would have to take a bicycle, put it on the back of a squad car, still answer calls. So you really couldn't get far, you couldn't patrol, in essence. With the e-bikes, what that gives us is the ability to be out on those bikes. If I have a bike patrol, let's say it's assigned 1 week to Lake Williston, they could be out there in the parking lots. We have break-ins in those vehicles in that area, so we could have an officer presence in that area. They could still answer calls to the surrounding neighborhoods because, as I said before, these bikes have a long range and they'll travel about 30 miles an hour. Well, it'll also speed up.
Hopefully not on the paths while people are walking, Chief.
Right. But what what we aim to do is, we all know that the footpaths can give us a faster path than going out. Say if you respond to Waterside, you've got to come out of the park, go down, hit Odom, come back around, where with these bikes, we would be able to go directly to Waterside from the park. So it would actually increase or decrease response time. We can also, during events such as the ball tournaments down at the softball fields, the soccer fields, it gives us an ability to be out there, be seen and approached by the public, but we can also prevent, hopefully, break-ins. It's not something that I can quantify how many break-ins we would prevent, but a police presence is going to prevent a lot of crime.
And then one of the things I remember from the Master Bike PED plan with the public comments, for those that went to that, have been going to those meetings, they had that, I forget what they're called, where they take all the responses from surveys and they put it in the word thing, and the bigger words are the more people that have said that. There's been a reoccurring call for more public safety presence on the bikes and trails. As we're trying to push and promote Maumelle in a bike pedestrian, our walkways and trail system, the public has also been asking for increased accessibility and visibility, right? So maybe one night while you're walking a trail behind that's kind of in a green space and blocked off from fences, one day an officer just goes by on a bike, Now, they're not gonna be there every day, but that's the power of patrol, is you never know when they're gonna be there. It adds some accountability. We did have an assault, a fairly, publicly, a big assault occur on a walking trail, not too long ago. Not saying the e-bikes would have prevented that, but this is something that Chief Pickard has been talking about for longer than just this event. And that's why I said we probably failed with my presentation, because I've seen these numbers, I've beat them up over these numbers, we've talked about it, and sometimes I forget everything that helped it seem justifiable when we just come throw a resolution out real quick and pass it on. So I wanted to give Chief Pickard an opportunity to respond to that. And some of those things. It's not just this one weekend, it's part of a bigger mission that they've been trying to have.
To clarify now, as far as what funds we would use, we've had some ARPA money that we technically have already spent on the police and fire, but we've kind of had a little category that we've kind of remembered. Were you thinking about using that money for this, or were you thinking of just?
Not necessarily. I was just thinking general fund money. So the ARPA money we received went to repay public safety salaries that had been spent, and then the money that we saved on the salaries, because the ARPA money covered that money went into the general fund, and then Liz was keeping up with, and now that I think about it, I need to make sure that we're doing the same thing with Beatrice. She was just keeping up with how much money that was, and then kind of drawing down from there. It's all general fund money. I thought hadn't crossed my mind. I don't see necessarily why it should or should not. I think that this event in the eclipse, I was hoping to have numbers to be able to predict what we think the city will generate directly, right? We haven't yet determined the fees for the rental spots, and we're trying to figure that out, and we're still unsure about whether we'll have the right to use Track D, a contractual right to use it for that. But the idea is that we're generating direct fees from those things, and then this is gonna be a boom, hopefully hopefully a relatively short-term boom, in that people don't stay forever. But there's gonna be a lot of commercial activity that occurs because of this. I know the Chamber of Commerce has been working to spread awareness, and Courtney has been working to spread awareness of it too. I suspect, well, I don't wanna speculate just yet, because I'm trying to figure out how much we think will generate in direct fees. I'm not even gonna begin to predict sales tax revenue.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I am a no vote tonight. It's mainly sticker shock. I might change my mind in 3 weeks. I had no idea that ATVs and electric bikes cost as much as a decent car. So anyway, I'm just suffering from sticker shock. It just seems like a lot of money. Thank you.
Councilmember Gardner?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2023-24.
I've got a motion and a second. My lights just turned off. Is there any additional discussion on this? Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, could we do this by roll call?
Well, we'll do it typically, and then we can call for roll call.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Mazzoni?
Yeah, Jim, looking at this, I like it. One thing I know is that when you bring a ton of people into a small, which we are, rather enclosed place, that tends to create a lot of chaos. And there's nothing worse than when you're trying to organize the chaos, not having good comms and good people out there. And this may be the only way to get it. This is a no-fail mission for us. If something bad happens during that time and we can't get our first responders, we're going to feel that impact for a long time afterwards. Also, I love the idea of having first responders out later on the trails. There's always some mayhem and foolishness out there that will help there, and it'll also highlight our city in a good way. We've got that many people. There will be potentially some people looking at business, and if we, present ourselves in a good way, that's nothing but good. So, yeah, I got sticker shock too, trust me, but I just think it's something that I don't wanna go later, man, I wish we had done this.
Well, so I wish we would have like another eclipse where we're in totality and we could get a good feel for how the first one's gonna go, but I agree with what you're saying is it's a no-fail mission. And that you get one shot and, you know, maybe nobody comes, maybe everyone comes. There's communities that see their population triple over that 3 or 4 day event. And you add, if we tripled from 20,000 to 60,000 with our current facilities, if you think you have shell shock now, wait until the budget session and we've added overtime. Just saying. We're gonna have basically all call for extended periods of time. So just get that one warmed up. Councilmember Holt.
Just to have a question, is this going to be, are there specific locations where the observation will be, or is it just a general, like, you know, I live on Rolling Oaks across from the soccer field, and you mentioned the soccer fields. Just our own people going in the soccer field can clog the entire street. So how will we, it may clog our neighborhood where we can't get in or out at all.
That is correct.
The bicycles and et cetera may be 24/7. All I'm asking, not about the budget, it's just the logistical control.
So my plan has always been plan for the worst case, which is total gridlock. So thinking of alternate means as well as the fire chief, because I didn't even realize they had a fire version of a trailer that they could haul somebody out until he brought it up. So we're both planning for worst case scenario and hoping for the best. So if we have total gridlock, the bicycles will allow us to go between cars or footpaths, alternate means of traffic, as well as the ATVs, because it can go down the bike paths just as well as the bikes. We currently do it. Parks and Recs has ATVs that they use to do the groundskeeping at a lot of the parks. I think even Public Works may have one, but we're just trying to plan for the worst and then hope for the best.
Can some of the citizens perhaps be semi-deputized, trained and to assist in traffic control and?
It's an option that I'm looking at. Currently, I don't have any plans in effect for that just yet.
On a smaller scale, one of the things we are looking at, right, and so we're trying to, we think people are coming whether we invite them or not, right? And so we're trying to create multiple different locations for them to go to, and then things for them to do there. What you don't want to have happen is get a bunch of people in an area with nothing to do and they just sit there for an extended period of time getting bored, because then they'll figure out something to do. So in the locations that we're trying to guide people to, we've been meeting with the soccer associations, the baseball associations, softball association, and saying, listen, we're going to try and guide people to your area. In exchange, you guys can run the concession stands. You guys can, I don't know, you want to put a dunk booth out there or sell the Kiss the Pig. You can help run the festivities and use the money that you're generating there as a fundraiser for their leagues. And we're counting, and in exchange, we're saying, you're also going to kind of help us register people when they come in and they're going to their location. And we don't expect them to be police officers or EMTs, but we do want them to kind of tell folk this is against the rules, and then if there's a problem, call the first responders out. So we're trying to capitalize on that sort of citizen engagement because we don't think we're going to have the personnel within all hands. We don't think we'll have the personnel to manage the amount of people that could be here if we had all city employees working 24/7 for that 3 or 4 days. So we are doing what you're saying to that extent. As far as traffic management, I think one of the goals is we may be rotating folks from sanitation and street department and stuff like that to help run your parking and do some of that stuff. But we're still sorting these out. We've had, I think, more meetings over the eclipse, and there's subcommittees. There's like the public safety side and then the festival committee, and so it's become quite a thing. Yes,
And
sir.
more to the mayor's point, one of the things that he rode with me over to North Little Rock after the tornado, and one of the things that we observed was that their public works department was actually manning the roadblocks because there were not enough police officers. This is not a one-day event either. This event is supposed to take place on Monday and the Thursday. From everything we have been informed of from our police officers that have gone to the conferences as well as the fire marshal, is that this starts on a Thursday and will continue through Monday and possibly even following for a few days. So this is not a quick hit and they're gone, because it's gonna take a while to recoup afterwards. And right now, the police department is on a blackout dates for that week and possibly a little bit more, so that there's no vacation approved. But again, there are issues that are gonna come up, but we're, again, trying to plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Thanks, sir. Chief Buford? You can't let Chief Pickard get all the
Yes,
glory.
I have to say something as well. I also did want to point out that if the deputy fire marshal, when he's attended he is probably the most knowledgeable person in the city about this, actually. And when he says we could triple the population, to put it in perspective, that means if there's 60,000 people, our call volume can be between 5 and 6 EMS calls per day, and we have 3 response vehicles. During this same time, with Little Rock, North Little Rock, and the surrounding areas, the ambulances are going to be at the higher populated areas. So there's going to be times where we're going to have everybody that works for the fire department manning first aid stations and everything else, because really, in actuality, 6 calls will overwhelm the system. 6 EMS calls. So I need to have people that can get to locations. And not just for the people visiting, but for the people that of the city of Maumelle, because we still have to serve the community as well as prepare for these events. And so that's why the fixed locations for first aid, what we're trying to prevent is somebody calling 911 because they have a sprained wrist. So maybe that's something that we can deal with so they're not calling 911. Because in the absence of somebody living in the city and they get hurt, their default is to call 911 because that's all they know. And so that's why the preparation for this is crucial, because if we're not prepared and if we don't set up these things, the medical aspect of it can be overwhelming pretty quickly. And I think that we want to be prepared so that we can protect our own citizens as well as the visiting public as also. So that's, I know there is sticker shock that goes with it, but we have to look at it in those terms: triple the population, triple the calls. And so we do need to have that way to get to the patients and provide patient care, because 3 calls, that's 3 ambulances. We can barely get 3 ambulances here right now back to back as it is. So that means the fire service will be the ones doing medical care until we can get a patient evacuated out. I just wanted to make sure that that was brought out.
Thank you. It's also more than sticker shock. The idea sounds completely absurd that Maumelle could have that many people here, right? Like when you first hear about it, and I know how I heard when I heard, I was like, yeah, okay. And I know how some other people that I've talked to reacted the same way. And it's not until you start looking into it and then seeing what has happened and then seeing where Maumelle is and what's going on, and you start learning about it, that you start going, oh no, right? And so I remember I was in a meeting, a task force meeting, still kind of rolling my eyes, knowing that we had to go look through it. It was right after April, and I pulled up my phone and looked, and all the Maumelle hotels were booked. A year early, the hotels were filled up. And I was like, okay, they're coming, right? Because that's the people who are so prepared, they know a year in advance what's going to happen. There's going to be people who figure out a week before it occurs, and maybe they live in Memphis, or they're just trying to get to totality, and here they come. I think the number was 1.2 to 1.5 million people is what's expected to come to the region. And those are people from out of country, from throughout the country. If you live in Florida and you're driving to totality, where are the places in totality that you get? I'd encourage you, if you haven't already, to watch that Facebook video that the chamber did with the doctor, and they showed the routes that people were taking from different metropolitan areas. If they're going to totality, where do they end up? How do they get there? Just be thankful we're not Russellville, because they're in totality longer than we are. We're not on the outskirts, but we're not in the center. So think we only have 2.5 minutes of totality, 3 minutes of totality. 3 minutes, 17 seconds. I'm glad someone around here looked into that. Councilmember Holt.
Well, you know, we've already passed I think it was $60,000 for a license plate reader, deal, and I think we've got to put it into motion where we start using it. We may need that much faster than we think, so this would be the prime time to use it. Do you agree, Chief? There's gonna be a lot of people come that we really don't want.
Well, unfortunately, I've had to freeze the plans on the license plate readers. In discussions with Little Rock and North Little Rock, the system that we planned on is no longer the system that they're going to continue using. They are moving away from SkyCop, which will be a benefit for us. It will be a better system with some of the concerns that the council voiced last time. I'll have answers for that I believe will satisfy everyone. But that kind of prep you. That money was coming out of drug control fund, and I can use that to supplement the budget. I have to buy another piece of software with the CAD system that was left out by the previous project manager and myself. I'll have to own that one. So I'll be coming back to add to that from drug control fund so that it does not cost the city for the mistake.
Thank you, sir. Any additional discussion on Resolution 2023-24? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no.
No.
Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Mosley?
No.
Councilmember Grunwald?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazzoni?
Yes.
Councilmember Gartner?
Yes.
Councilmember Williams? Councilmember Tierney?
Yes.
Councilmember Shin?
Yes.
Councilmember Holt?
Yes.
Motion passes. Resolution 2023-24 is passed. The next item of business is the Traffic and Parking Committee. The Traffic and Parking Committee for Ward 3, for Ward 4, and for Ward 3 and 4 met on July 12th pursuant to the ordinance. I'm going to report on what occurred. The Ward 4 Traffic and Parking Committee meeting approved stop signs at Champs Boulevard and Jackie Burnett. That is over by where Tractor Supply Distribution facility is being built. The Ward 3 Traffic and Parking Committee approved an angled parking zone on Commercial Park Drive. And the Wards 3 and 4 Traffic and Parking Committee approved. They authorized speed tables on Commercial Park Drive. So Commercial Park Drive, for those that don't know what, is it's on the northwest part of Commercial Park Drive is where the angled parking zone has been authorized. Angled parking zones, for those that don't know, in the street, usually when people park, you park parallel to the curb. And angled parking allows the city to create a parking zone where you're parking at an angle, usually 45, 90. The ordinance accounts for the percentages. We just don't have any of those in Maumelle. The closest angled parking zone that we have is actually, I think, on Woodland by the park. It's angled parking, but it is an off street. So as you're going down Woodland, you kind of go over the curb and then have angled parking right there. So that's just a report on what the Parking and Traffic Committee did. Were there any questions? Okay, seeing none, y'all came in, that concludes the agenda new business. Y'all came in and saw a resolution that was posted here. I'm going to ask y'all to amend the agenda and add resolution 2023-25 so that it can be read and discussed, but just an overview is this allows the city to apply for an STBG grant for the Club Manor corridor. In other words, to get an 80-20 grant to pay for the construction of the Club Manor quarter. We're not 100% sure we're gonna be able to apply, but this is the last council meeting where the resolution would need to be passed. And we didn't think we would even qualify with this project under an STBG. We thought we were gonna have to go for a TAP grant instead. But it looks like we may be able to make it work. I'd request a motion to amend the agenda to add Resolution 2023-25. I've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that motion?
How much more money is that involved?
So pardon me?
Well,
I didn't-
it's
your
gonna-
mic
you're
wasn't
looking for
on,
the
I
grant
didn't-
money, but how much money are we applying for in the grant?
We don't have that exact number in yet. The max of the grant is 3 million. And so, that is the max we would be applying for, but we're still running to crunch those numbers, because we didn't think we'd be qualified for this grant. But that would have to, this does not, well, we can discuss that if it's added to the agenda. Is there any additional discussion on the motion to add it to the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read resolution number 2023-25 by title only, please.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, a resolution to be entitled Resolution Number 2023-25, a resolution expressing the willingness of the City of Maumelle to utilize Federal Aid Transportation Program funds, Surface Transportation Block Grant, and Carbon Reduction Program.
That's a fun one. So what, that's a fun title. So this grant, we have, we did the planning for Club Manor corridor, and then we're underway with engineering. We're past 30% plans, so we think we can qualify to apply. We're still verifying that. It's not a fully engineered project, but if we can show them we're far enough along, then we can go through and apply for the grant. The grant would cover 80% of the project, of a project no greater than 3 million. This allows us to apply for that grant. If that grant is approved, we still have to come back to the City Council for the appropriation of that money. Is there any, I'll go ahead and open the floor for discussion. Councilmember Gardner?
Anytime we can pay 20% on street improvements versus 100%, that sounds like a win to me.
I agree.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2023-25.
Got a motion and a second. Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, who found this grant?
I did. It's a grant we've known about, but at the last Metro Plan meeting, they were discussing the types of projects that could work for it. And then at Metro Plan, we've split it up into different categories now. It used to be that you could apply for engineering or construction, or it was just one application pool. They've now split it out so that you can apply for one or the other, because we're a medium-sized city. We didn't think that this project would necessarily score very high on an STBG, and what we found is that what I was looking at is the scoring matrix has changed for the STBG grants, and how those are awarded is based on how well that project scores. Now included in, hang on, let me. Now included in the scoring are things such as pedestrian facilities and walking facilities. I had assumed, and we had kind of looked at and thought, that we would want to be applying for the Greenway grants through TAP. This is actually not that. It's a different grant process, but that also provides the same sort of scoring weight that this project will score very well on, it looks like.
Well, thank you. Congratulations on finding that.
Well, let's.
Or being alert or whatever.
Let's see if we get it. And I'm not 100% sure we qualify with the level of engineering. Ideally, they want fully engineered projects to be submitted for construction grants. However, they have provisions, and I was talking with the engineers today about it. They have provisions that say as long as the project is ready to be constructed and for those monies to be committed in FY '24, then that project is good to go for that. So it'll take them taking a look at our engineering and the scope of the project for them to determine whether or not they think that the project will be fully engineered. However, we are using one of their preferred engineers on this, so it shouldn't be a problem. But, okay. All right, we have a motion and second on this. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting Resolution 2023-25, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. That concludes new business. We'll move on to mayor's comments. I think I've talked enough. Council, are there any council member comments? Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I ran into Roy Andrews at the Planning Commission meeting last week, and I asked him about the weeds down on the Crystal Hill Road, and he said that that Boyles has promised to come and mow them early this week, so hopefully that gets done. I know you've made a effort to try to get that done, and so anyway, it looks like maybe it'll get done, and I drove by there on the way to the council, and it hadn't been done yet, but.
Okay, I had planned on going, but I had a last-minute resolution to draft.
Okay. Another question, I meant to ask this back during the financial report. You had given me the outstanding list of items by the auditor, and there was one item on there where they were asking about a line of credit that was taken out, I think in 2021. Why would we have a line of credit with a bank?
I believe that was the letter of credit that we needed for Entergy. If you'll recall, we had that dispute with Entergy, and they required, in order to get them to relocate the power lines, we agreed to get a letter of credit saying we would pay for those pending the outcome of the Public Service Commission's finding as to who was financially responsible for the relocation fees.
Okay, 'cause I guess that settlement required us to do that. Do we even still have it?
It was the agreement that we had at that time, so that case is still in front of the,
Okay.
we just renewed the letter of credit.
Still, okay.
Which is kind of absurd if you ask me, because the fee is, it's 120,000? 143,000, which is like 3 months of bills that we pay to Entergy. So it's not a massive amount relative to how much we pay to them for them to say that we needed a letter of credit as opposed to just saying, we'll pay our bill.
Yeah.
Was a little bit silly. So we have to keep renewing that until that is resolved at the Public Service Commission.
Thank you very much, sir.
Man, when you were asking a question about a specific thing the auditor was asking for, I was like, there's no way I'm gonna know this specific, but got it. All right, any additional council member comments? City attorney comments? City clerk comments? If there's nothing further, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn the council meeting of July the 17th, 2023.
We've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries.